Malinali knew that if life was to thrive, and these two principles remain united, she had to position herself in a circular place to safeguard them, to blanket them, since circular forms were what best contained and protected all of creation. Sharp forms, on the other hand, broke things apart, separated them. The mouth, as feminine principle, as empty space, as cavity, was the best place for words to be engendered. And the tongue, as masculine principle, sharp, pointed, phallic, was the one to introduce the created word, that universe of information, into other minds in order to be fertilized. But what would fertilize it? That was the great unknown. Malinali was convinced that there were only two possibilities: union or separation, creation or destruction, love or hatred, and that the outcome would be influenced by the tongue, that is, by herself. For she had the power with her words to include others in a common purpose, to clothe them, to shelter them. Or she could exclude them, making them into foes, separate beings with irreconcilable ideas, or into solitary beings who were isolated and destitute as she had been in her status as slave, feeling for so many years what it was like to live without a voice, without being taken into account and forbidden to make any decisions on her own. But that past now seemed very far away. She, the slave who listened to orders in silence, who couldn't look directly into the eyes of men, now had a voice, and the men, staring into her eyes, would wait attentively to hear what her mouth uttered. She, who had so often been given away, who so many times had been gotten rid of, now was needed, valued, as much as if not more than cacao. Unfortunately, this privileged position was unstable and could change at any moment. Even her life was in danger. Only a victory by the Spaniards would guarantee her freedom, for reasons that she had not been afraid to state on various occasions in veiled language, that the Spaniards truly had been sent by the Lord Quetzalcoatl, and not only that, but that Cortés himself was the incarnation of the revered God. Now it was she who could decide what was said and what went unsaid, what to confirm and what to deny, what would be made known and what kept secret. It was a grave dilemma, for it wasn't simply a matter of saying or not saying, or substituting one name for another, but that in doing so she ran the risk of changing the meaning of things. When translating, she could change what things meant and impose her own vision on events, and by so doing enter into direct competition with the gods, which horrified her. Because of her insolence, the gods could very well become annoyed with her and mete out their punishment, and this absolutely frightened her. She could avoid this fate by translating everything as closely to the meaning of the words as possible. But if the Mexicas were to question for a moment, as she herself had, whether or not the Spaniards had been sent by Quetzalcoatl, she would be destroyed along with them in the blink of an eye. So she found herself in a delicate position. Either she remained faithful to the gods and to the meaning that they had given to the world, or she followed her instincts, her most earthly and primary instincts, and made sure that each word and each action acquired the meaning that most suited her. The second choice was clearly a rebellion against the gods, and their eventual reaction filled her with fear and guilt, but she saw no other alternative. Malinali's feelings of fear and guilt were at the least as powerful as those of Montezuma. Weeping, trembling, filled with dread, he awaited the punishment of the gods for how the Mexicans had destroyed Tula long before and in that sacred place dedicated to Quetzalcoatl had engaged in human sacrifice. Before, in the Toltecan Tula, there had been no need for such practices. It was enough that Quetzalcoatl lit the new fire and accompanied the sun on its path through the celestial dome to maintain balance in the cosmos. Before the Mexicas, the sun did not feed on human blood. It did not ask for it, did not demand it. The great guilt that Montezuma bore on his shoulders made him certain that not only was it time to pay old debts, but that the arrival of the Spaniards signaled the end of his empire. Malinali could prevent this from happening. She could proclaim that the Spaniards had not been sent by Quetzalcoatl, and they would be destroyed in a moment along with her, and she did not want to die a slave. She yearned to live in freedom, no longer to be given from one to another, no longer to lead such an errant life. There was no going back, no way to come out unharmed. She knew too well Montezuma's cruelty, and she knew that if the Spanish were defeated in their venture, she would be condemned to death. Faced with this possibility, she understandably wanted the Spanish to triumph. And if to assure their victory she had to keep alive the idea that they were gods come from the sea, she would do so, although by now she wasn't very convinced of the idea. The hope that one day she would be able to do whatever she wanted, marry whom she wanted, and have children without the fear that they might be taken into slavery or destined as sacrifices, was enough to make her take a step back. What she most wanted was a piece of earth that belonged to her and where she could plant her grains of corn, the ones that she always carried with her and that had come from her grandmother's cornfield. If the Spaniards could make sure that her dreams would crystallize, then it was worthwhile helping them. Of course, this didn't assuage her guilt or make clear to her what she should say and what she should keep silent about. What kind of life is worth defending with lies? And who could confirm that they were lies? Perhaps she was being too harsh. Perhaps the Spaniards had been sent by Quetzalcoatl, and it was her duty to collaborate with them until she died, sharing with them privileged information that had come directly from the mouth of a woman in Cholula. This woman had loved Malinali's confident personality, her beauty, and her physical strength, and she wanted her as a wife for her son. With the intent of saving Malinali's life, she had confided in her, warning her that in Cholula they were preparing an ambush against the Spanish. The plan was to arrest them, wrap them up in hammocks, and take them to Tenochtitlan, alive. The woman suggested that Malinali leave the city before this happened, and that afterward she could marry her son. Malinali now had the burden of deciding whether or not to share this information with the Spaniards. Cholula was a sacred place. One of Quetzalcoatl's temples was situated there. The defense or attack of Cholula meant the defense or attack of Quetzalcoatl. Malinali was more confused than ever. The only thing she was sure of was that she needed silence to clear her mind. She implored the gods for silence. What most tormented her, aside from the external noises, were the noises within, the voices in her mind that told her not to say anything, not to give the Spaniards any valuable information that might save their lives, for something was wrong. Perhaps the foreigners were not who she thought they were, not the envoys of Quetzalcoatl. Certainly, their recent behavior did not conform to the ideal model that she had devised. She felt disillusioned. For one thing, there was a total incongruity between the meaning of the name Cortés, courteous, and the man himself.